I want to welcome you all on this panel of women directors, and this will be moderated by Sapna ji. Sapna ji is the founder of Bench Film Festival, which aims to push women talent to the world. She's also a well-known hairstylist, actor, spoken word artist, writer, director, producer, multifaceted in all ways. Before I proceed, I think I'll just hand over the responsibility to Sapna ji to introduce other panelists to the audience, and then let's hear them talk about the how women are changing, how women are doing things to change, how they are change makers. On those lines, she'll have a discussion, and let's take it ahead from here. I will, at the end of the conversation, I'll come in for a minute to wrap up the program. So I think that should be good. Sapna ji, Malati ji, Akriti ji, Jasvir ji, and Amber, you can unmute yourself, and then we can take forward from here.
Deepti also is there. Okay, thank you, Praveen. Thank you so much. And thank you for having us on Culture Cinema. We are very happy to be here also because culture in cinema, cinema using culture, they're just fabulous, fabulous ways of telling stories. So thank you for having us. And I'm really happy. It's like I've had a big friend circle. I said, okay, come on, let me call my fabulous friends and some newcomers that I don't know to this panel. And I'd like to probably start with our very early in the morning, Amber. Hello, Amber. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
How is Brooklyn?
It's, it's good. It's not sure if it's opened or closed. We're not sure right now, but yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So Amber, I know for many years. Actually, when I was thinking of making my film Hindustan, I met her in Bombay, and I told her of the idea that I had of making my documentary, and she said, "If you don't make this, I'm going to kill you." And she said it so seriously that I was like, "Okay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make this film." So she has been an inspiration for me. Not too many people in India probably know of her film Speed Sisters. It was released in 2015. It won a lot of awards. A lot of people, especially, I mean, I'm just talking about India and the cliches that we have with women in the Middle East and with Arabic women and Muslim women in general. When we think of them, we constantly think of the burqa, the hijab, and they behave a certain way and blah, blah, blah. These things that even women have in their heads about these women, not just men. We're talking about it in general. And when you see Amber's film, Speed Sisters, she just took that notion and you will just throw it out of the window, because here they are, these four badass women who are like race car drivers, and they just grab you and you just look at them and you just feel so sorry for yourself for having those cliches that you ever had about these women. So thank you, Amber, for making this amazing film. And I also congratulate you on your new short doc, Reckoning with Laughter, that's just come out now. And welcome to our panel.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Next we have, let's go to Miss Malati. Malati, again, very, very, very well known in the documentary space. She's another friend of mine. I love saying that because it makes me look really cool that I have such great friends. Malati has been in the documentary space for a very long time. Even she made a short doc, Handmade in India. It was on artisans, and that was in 2014. In 2019, she made her first feature, A Geishima is Born, which again tackles a lot of norms of women in the Buddhist system. And it's a beautiful documentary that has been traveling the world and has been winning a lot of awards. So thank you so much for joining us, Malati.
Oh, pleasure's mine.
Yeah. Next we have, let's go to Akriti. Hi, Akriti. Akriti is a new friend. I've been watching her work, and she has actually been doing theater for many years. She has done 14 plays. And this is her first feature called Tufan Mail. And it's quite amazing because she has also once again based it on this woman, on a real life story, on Begum Hasrat Mahal, the Queen of Awadh. And she has made a fiction story out of it, when she acts in it as well. So this, I'm really excited to know the whole process. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sapna, for having me here.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Let's go to Deepti ji now. Deepti Rani. Deepti also, once again, I know from a professional standpoint, because in all the ads that I've been to, she is one of the few female cinematographers, which Amber also is a cinematographer, by the way. So Deepti, I met, on ads. She'd be like the one of the three that we have, whatever. And we just became really good friends in the whole process and started kind of following each other's work. And then when she started working on my friend Sona's documentary, Shut Up Sona, which once again uses Mirabai and music to tell a lovely story of Me Too and patriarchy. Shut Up Sona, once again, has traveled the world and won a lot of awards. And we see Deepti now in a new chair as a director. And so welcome, Deepti.
Woohoo! Thank you. Happy to be here. Delighted to be here with you and in great company.
Yes, yes. And then lastly, we have Jasvir. Jasvir is not a film director, but I met her once in Canada. Her film, there was a film that was made on her and the cause that she is working on. And she uses music to kind of use topics like patriarchy and also the place of women, even in Sikhism, and especially even in the Gurdwara. Me being a quarter Sikh myself, I know that when you go to a Gurdwara, you don't really see women doing kirtans. They're usually all men. And that's something that even I ever thought about, that why are there no women actually doing this? And so she has started an organization called Kaur Voices, and she has been pushing this agenda forward, and I'm really proud to have her here. So welcome, Jasvir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sapna, for having me. So I'm actually the executive producer on the documentary, and it was to help share the decolonization of Kirtan, especially in the Western world. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So now that we have our fabulous panel on place, I'm just going to start throwing out some questions. And I think we can just go, because we're so many of us, 5 of us, so it's going to take a second. So let's just start. I'll just go back and start with Amber. Amber, I know that you lived in Palestine for a little bit when you decided to kind of make this documentary. Do you want to tell us what was your motivation and why did you think that this story was really necessary? How long did it take? And the process, did you have funding? What was the process like?
A lot of questions.
Yeah. I'm interested.
I actually wasn't a filmmaker when I was living in Palestine. I had gone there essentially for 6 months, and then ended up staying for 7 years. And in that time, had come across these women race car drivers. And I think for me, really the desire, the want to make this film started after 9/11. I'm Canadian. I was born and raised in Canada. My grandparents came from Lebanon. And after 9/11, things really shifted for me. All of a sudden, I felt like I was a stranger in my own country, and really didn't have a huge understanding of the Middle East, and felt that I needed to sort of better understand my own roots in order to sort of fight this wave of racism that I saw that was going to start happening, and had really thought that film was like the best way to do that. And so I guess that was always in the back of my mind as I had traveled through the Middle East. And then when I was living in Ramallah, I came across these women race car drivers, and it was surprising for me that there was even there were races even happening because of all of the restrictions on movement that exists within the West Bank. But and then the layer on the fact that there were these women. So I just really felt like that was the story for me, which I wanted to, bridge that gap that I saw happening between the West and the Middle East. But I think one of the big surprises is that it also bridged the gap that was happening even within the Middle East itself, because so little people actually have direct access to Palestine, because the rest of the Arab world, it's very difficult for them to travel there. And so that was sort of wasn't something I thought about when I initially started making it. And when I started, like I said, I had made, I think at that time I had made a short film in Palestine and had been like toying around with filmmaking, but really didn't, I really didn't know what I was doing. And but because we were living there and because I had access to a camera, I just started filming, and we just sort of, to see where that went. And pretty early on, like I think within like the first 2 years, we got an initial small amount of funding from Sundance. And that really helped us in terms of, it just gave us credibility. It also connected us with a lot of mentors and stuff. But we really made the majority of that film on a shoestring and didn't get, the real funding until after a rough cut. So, meanwhile, we would get, small grants here and there. We did two crowdfunding campaigns and raised, I think at that time it was about $120,000 over 2 different campaigns. And also received, there was a lot of press about them, the girls themselves. And so we were able to sort of ride that, and that helped us like raise that money. And then, like I said, the majority of the funding came in after we had really a proof of concept. And then it sort of went from there.
Wow. Yeah, because funding is such a big process for especially women, it's really, and in India, it's really difficult to even gather that funding. That's why most of us are usually funding our own films. So I'm really happy to see that even though you did get that grant from Sundance, and that probably helped you get more funding, right?
It didn't initially. I mean, it helped us in terms of, I think it gave us the confidence that, oh, we're on to something really great. And obviously it looked good, but as a first-time filmmaker, you still, people were still didn't know if we had what we said we had, and you can't really see that and I have to say, like, even making my second feature hasn't been that much easier, to tell you the truth. Like in terms, now I have like, a reputation, and I have, like a body of work, and it still is very, very difficult to get funding. And a lot of it is, I've been fortunate enough to be able to partner with people that are working for, for in deferment and in a certain case. And because we have the means of being able to, with a camera and being able to just go out and continue to film, that we're able to push it forward. But it's very, very difficult if you don't have, it's very difficult if you don't have that means or that access to somebody that can help you.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like that takes me to you, Akriti. Like your journey with your first feature. How was it? I mean, how was the whole funding process, the whole process of actually going about making this? This seems to be the journey to make a feature. I mean, once I tried to apply to a feminist film festival, and the film festival asked me, does your film have feminism in it? I said, excuse me, a woman making a film is feminism. We don't have to make a film about feminism. That is feminism. So hence, I find it very important, the process and how we go about, because we are hustlers and we do go about our niches and we do it. So I would love to know your process, Akriti, with Tufan Men.
Yeah. So I was so worried about going to a producer that I thought that maybe they'll not understand the kind of film that I want to make. Maybe they will meddle with my script. I'm a first-time director. They'll not trust me. So I didn't go to a producer. I have this theater group that I've been running for the past 4 years. And I have these bunch of friends. All of us do theater. And in theater, we are used to doing more than just acting on stage. So all of us are actors, but we also work backstage, and we also work with the production and the set design and the costumes. So we got together. We were a bunch of friends. We shot it outside Bombay. The story is set in Delhi, that too 70s Delhi. Right. So we shot it in a small town that my friend lives in. And all of us took up multiple roles. I mean, whenever a person was not on screen, all of us are acted in the film. When we are not on screen, we are behind the camera, being a spot person, getting food for people, holding lights, holding umbrella, and all those. So we got together and shot it like that. But of course, I needed money for the post-production. I edited the film myself, so that was also done. But I needed money for sound design and music. So we crowdfunded for that. And it was a successful crowdfunded thing. I mean, we crowdfunded through Wishberry and we got the money, and that's how the film was done. Of course, it was a hustle all the way through. We were breaking all the set things of Bollywood, that this is how you're supposed to do it. We are like, no, we are not listening to you, and we are going to do it. So that's what.
That is so amazing to hear. And the fact is how all of us are just picking up editing as a tool, because we're just like, you know what, I'm just going to edit my own film. Screw it.
Yeah.
I mean, just based on necessity. So this is really amazing to hear, Akriti. Next, I'm going to go to you, Deepti, because I also know your journey. Shut Up Sona took such a long time. I remember that. I mean, you traveled so much, and it wasn't just with one person. It's with the whole team, with musicians. It was quite a big affair to shoot Shut Up Sona, and also once again with the budget. How did you go about doing this as a director? And also the kind of controversies that were happening while you guys were shooting. How was that?
See, I mean, because the film is about a musician who's a performing musician, the fact is one has to travel with them and follow them. So it's actually, I was going where they were going. It's not, it wasn't shows for the film or anything. So, okay. And the crew was very small, as always a documentary crew is. So we were, like a tight crew of 3 people or something for the film. But of course, with Sona, there's always glamour traveling with you,
Yeah.
So yeah. But the interesting thing for me in the journey was that we just decided to, take charge of how we wanted to tell our own narratives. And somewhere hidden in the narrative of Sona it's like I was finding that I was expressing myself and my own story almost, because I found a complete parallel in it for how things were for me as a DP. So it was very cathartic in a way. And all the things that Sona loves about, the writings of Meera or the writings of Kabir, or, the things that the mystics wrote hundreds of years ago, questioning what we are still questioning today. That's what we bonded on. So, for me, it was more interesting to find
There. I think Deepti froze a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, she'll be back. Okay. So while Deepti comes back, let's shift the focus to you, Malati.
Sure.
Let's talk about your journey. Why did you decide to pick this subject in Geshima is Born? What was your motivation and the process? Once again, did you have a producer? I know that you had PSVT on board as well, but still, that's probably usually also never enough, to get the film to the finish line. So, how did you go about doing the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, actually, for me, I was introduced to this subject by my producer. He is a disciple of the Dalai Lama, and so he knew what was happening in the Tibetan Buddhist world. And I think in that sense, when you speak of culture, I feel like we don't know what happens within the lived culture that either you are committed to or you grew up in. And this wasn't something that was available to me being non-practicing. I mean, I'm not really religious at all. But within the Tibetan Buddhist context, and when I sort of went to Dharamshala and I met the nuns, that's when I realized that there was something so radical that was going on there. That was my first introduction. But of course, it doesn't come easily. I mean, it's, when you're making a documentary, you really have to sort of get into it. And one of the first barriers for me was language. And I couldn't speak their language. I needed a good translator to be able to do so. And really sort of know how they communicate, because outwardly it seemed as if the nuns were really quiet or docile. it was an outside perspective that I was kind of bringing, you know. And even when they would speak of wanting to have the same sort of education that the monks have, I mean, basically that wasn't there. I mean, even though Tibetan Buddhism or Buddhism is considered for all sentient beings, and I'm sure Jasvir will sort of also relate to that. I mean, these are such large-hearted religions. And yet, when you look deep within them, you see the misogyny, you know, you see the issues that come up. But the thing that I found very, like, it was hard for me to get to, but eventually I understood, was that the nuns' idea of protest was also very different from how we, in a very Western education and understanding of the world, understand protest. So it takes time to know what protest means in a specific culture, you know, in that sense too. It's that. It's like, how do you protest within that culture, within that world, you know? And then it was to understand those layers, to understand all these layers of kind of negotiation that happen, to then see how they're making a shift from the inside. You know, how is that shift happening from the inside is really what the journey was. Of course, meeting my character, seeing how she came from a very sort of a simple farm family in Nepal, how she relates to the idea of, you know, individuality. I mean, in the sense of how does she stand out? What is she rejecting? I mean, she's rejecting all kinds of really domesticity. She doesn't want any of that. Right. She wants to live alone. She wants to have a life where she can be herself without the trappings of family, children, you know, all those sort of things that are there. So she's kind of charting her own course out and asking for her right within Tibetan Buddhism in a way which was, I mean, I think radical, because, I mean, and it is, because it isn't about picket fences and about protests, but it was about sticking to what they want in spite of all odds, in spite of thinking that they could really lose what was the only thing which they cared for, which is to be in this system and reach transformation, you know. So how do you break that? How do you get to that? So eye on the prize. I mean, that I just found that incredible how they did it. In terms of production, I mean, it was, I mean, as you know, PSPT is a small organization. Although they fund many projects, yet they kind of keep it, you know, very sort of economical. And something like this, you know, it took me 3 and a half years to make. You know, but like you said, and I'm so happy to be part of a group that really takes hustling as a badge. But I think what I tried to do was, because it was you know, there were limitations in terms of a small budget. I tried to have the project in as many labs as possible. And so that was helpful. It was there, of course, in Dock Edge in Calcutta. And that was great. And that opened doors to Sheffield and also to EaserDoc, which is the European social documentary. So I felt like I accessed communities who forwarded me in terms of how this film could evolve and really sharpen my own sort of voice through it. So
fabulous. Deepti is back with us, so I'll just go back to her really quick so we can just finish up what we were talking about. Hi, Deepti, you here? No?
Yeah. While I was speaking, everything froze, so I don't know where it trailed off.
No worries. You were just talking about how you were a small crew, and I just wanted to know more even about when it comes to production and the monies, and how was your documentary funded? Did you have people fund? Did you have an outside producer? I know Sona was a producer. I think you were also a producer, no?
Yes.
So what was the process of getting funded?
It was self-funded. See, initially when we decided to make it, I did think that, one should go the dockage way. Though it was a very open-ended kind of project. When we started making it, even I wasn't very sure how far we are going to go in this direction. It took me a little while to understand. Now this is evolving into what it's evolving into. It's becoming cathartic. It's becoming a story of what things are like for women in India in the backdrop of the patriarchy that we know, and in the backdrop of the commentaries that we hear about that patriarchy and how it comes through a contemporary artist. But by the time I was halfway into it, I thought, okay, it's not too late at all. This is anyway you apply to places like dockage when you're you have something to show, right? And since a lot of my colleagues are part of dockage, I did reach out to a couple of them and say, sent them my material and said, what do you think? I got a very clear answer, which was that at dockage and at these places that finance films from India, people look for a certain kind of project. And an artist who's well-to-do, she's a beautiful woman, doesn't look like there's any third world problems here, right? So it's not the kind of film that may get handled. Of course, you must try. It's like you must try. No one's telling you not to try, but the outcome maybe that, so be prepared. Right. And then, of course, I've shot a lot of films for different directors who have been through the process of dockage, and no film has taken less than 5 years. And here I was thinking, we'll just do this quickly. And I really feel like 3 years was quick. Malti, what do you think? 3 years for a feature is like, okay, it's decent. No, Sapna?
It took me 10 years for Hindustan. So that was too long. I think after that I said, you know what, I'll just go to fiction, my friend. I'll just, clear my way there. But
honestly, Sapna, I thought, okay, what are we paying for? Director is a sound person for sure. Right. I'm following Sona where her shows are happening. Right. Okay, so the money we need for is this basic 3-4 people crew, and of course amounts to a lot, and travel and stuff like that. But I don't know if it gets simpler than this in terms of a crew. But I was lucky to work with the best people that I could find.
Yeah.
I think in terms of sound design, Ram as a composer, I don't I think we just got a gift of the right people who collaborated.
And what a run after that, even though you want, like we say, poverty porn, like a lot of people want to see films from India, which is very true. And still,
but I must tell you, even once the film got ready, 1 or 2 even festival programmers told me, you can send it to Indian film festivals or maybe female film festivals. And I thought, maybe that's the run, but film will find its own space. So when Rotterdam, Hot Dogs and Sheffield happened, I felt like, okay, when you tell a story which is true to you, to your country, to your culture, and it's coming from a deep source, and your protagonist is, the person who you are able to tell it through. And while going deep in universal narrative.
Completely. I mean, I'm so with you on that, and thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to now go to Jasvir. Sorry, we've taken a while to come to you, but we just have such amazing women. So Jasvir, I welcome, and I will correct myself. You are the executive producer of Sikh Heritage, and I just want everyone to know that even though that she is not a director per se, she has been an executive producer to this documentary. She has a voice. She also has founded Core Voices. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself. So over to you, Jasvir.
Thank you, Sapna. You just left that very open. I could say anything.
You must say anything you want because you have such a beautiful voice. But I also want you, I actually would like to ask you the reason behind making that documentary, because I saw it and I think it opened my eyes, and I think it's a very important documentary, and your struggle and what you are trying to say with not only the film, but also with your voice. You are using your voice. So, yeah.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. So the need for the film was simply, there's a lot of our culture and our tradition that has been lost during the years of colonization. And this is something that the wider South Asian community is oblivious to. So there was a step to reclaim authenticity in our practice of Kirtan, and that goes across communities, not just in the Sikh community, in other communities as well. And the instrument that we specifically shed light on and talk about how it traveled from Europe and dominated Indian music is the harmonium. And you'd be surprised how many people have no idea that the harmonium does not come from Indian origin. It's a European instrument that has taken over all of North Indian music. So our documentary was a step to reclaim authentic practices that actually belong to us, that come from our lineage, that come from our ancestry. And this was our way to tell that story academically, factually, and through lived experiences as well. For myself, part of it that was really important was bringing women into this space, because if I talk about Sikh music, it's now predominantly led by men, and that poses many risks as well. Spaces that are dominated by men don't include women, which means they're not always safe for us.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of you have experienced that in your own ways. So I was very fortunate enough to have a forward-thinking mentor who is an intersectional feminist, and he pushed me forward in expressing my voice, even in the moments that it was uncomfortable, and actually speaking in the documentary and contributing as an academic was something that I was nervous about at the beginning, because I wasn't comfortable at that time with public speaking. And he said, no, if you're talking about the future of reclaiming, then we need to bring women into the lead, and you need to step into that space. So I felt very empowered by having good support, and to just see now how many more women are coming forward to use their voices through film and through storytelling is life-giving, to know that we're creating a better future. But these were all small statements that we were trying to make through this documentary, Sikh Musical Heritage, The Untold Story. Many parts of it were enjoyable, and we had a lot of difficulties as well, much around funding that some of you have shared. So our project was self-funded. We did a little bit of crowdfunding, and we hit a huge stone wall when it came to the post-production. So we hired a company that wasn't able to deliver on our expectations. We wanted to create something that we would feel proud of, and what they produced was not something we wanted to put our name to. So then we had to go back and fund again in order to be able to produce the documentary to an adequate standard. And we went across many film festivals, received a lot of support. Unfortunately, none of the Indian film festivals accepted our documentary because they thought it was too niche, because in the title it had Sikh musical heritage, even though it covers North Indian musical heritage. So this was something I found a little bit disheartening. But now with a lot of pleasure, I get to share that this year we went on to Amazon Prime. So the documentary is now available for wider audiences to be able to watch and learn about our heritage.
Yes. And congratulations for that. I'm really excited. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about Core Voices as well?
Yes, thank you. I would love to. So that's a movement to shed light onto the whole Me Too topic. And I know that there was a Me Too India movement. There's been Me Too in other spaces as well. But because of the social and cultural barriers in our various community groups, women aren't coming forward, and the amount of victims is far too many. They've been silenced and suppressed. So this was a step forward to be able to open that space, to have these conversations, to hold a safe space essentially, and say, you know what, you're not alone and we see you. How can we stand in solidarity by knowing that this happens? The reason that the voices get silenced, unfortunately, is down to patriarchy, because the men who hold the positions of power are often the oppressors, or they're far disconnected from the victims, that they don't believe that it's as widespread as it is. And we only know that because we live in female bodies. So there's a movement to educate all people in all parts of the world, from all communities, how important it is for us to embrace better language where it comes to respect and dignity for all humans, and not to oppress others because of their gender or because of their belief systems.
Yeah, fabulous. So well said. So well said. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have a rather controversial sort of a question next. So there is this thing, I mean, it's worldwide, in India especially. I had approached someone who's actually leading this outfit known for making films by women. All right. So I was very excited. Wow, there's something like this in our country. Wow. So I go there and I'm talking to this man and I say, oh, wow. So you are just pushing women directors and women writers. And he said, well, no, I was. I said, oh, what does that mean? He said, well, now when we send the scripts out to people, we actually don't give the name of the woman. We just give the initials, because the minute someone finds out a woman wrote it, oh, they just switch off automatically. I was kind of appalled.
Wow.
Yeah. I was kind of appalled when I heard this. I'm like, what do you mean they switch off? He's like, yeah, because there's this thing, right? Because women, it's like NGO film. These are his words. Oh, they're like NGO films. You know, they don't know how to make films. They're only about women empowerment. Women are only making films about women empowerment. So nobody wants these stories because they are very NGO. All right. Now, I was just appalled. First of all, there is this man who has started this company to sell women, okay, and our talent. All right, that right there, whatever. Secondly, now I'm very excited to hear more about this. And this is what he tells me. So
Sapna, what was your reaction?
I just put the phone down. I just went click. I refuse to have this conversation anymore.
Yeah.
Like this
You should have told them how the men don't know how to make films in India. I mean, look at Bollywood. What are they making?
No. So I mean, obviously the narrative of, and now that my film was in the Korean market in the horror genre, which they were also amazed. Wow, an Indian woman director in the horror space. Well, welcome. It was almost like short of a garland or something. They were so excited to see a woman in this space, right? But, they were all talking about women films. This is worldwide, but I just talk of India. 90% of them are made by men. All right. And the cliche narrative is always this, that of course we are born meek, right? Then something bad happens to us. Okay. Then we go to the gym, right? And then we get guns and then we kill you. Right? I mean, like, what is this narrative? Like, what? And even though each one of us here have made films that have woman inclined, right? What is this thing now you're telling us even that we are only capable of making these films and these are NGO films? So, I mean, I would just love to hear your take on this subject, because that's why we don't get funding. I mean, and if you want to do any other kind of films, like if it's a man who's just starting out, he could be like 21 years old, but he'll get funding to make any freaking film that he wants. But if it's a woman trying to do the same, we have to prove ourselves. I'm really a bit like appalled at this whole thing. So let's just talk about NGO films, and let's talk about women, like all of us, including me, have made films that have women as a protagonist, and there's nothing wrong with it, and no FR. So how do we approach this? How do we move forward? How do we kind of get beyond this whole narrative of NGO films, right? So Amber, let's start with you, because it's the same even in America. I mean, India is here, but even in America, women voices are not really funded that well, and the whole narrative of women with LGBTQ inclusive, it's just this, that we are just not capable of making all-rounded cinema. What's your take on that?
I don't know if I agree with that completely. I think that in like, I've never felt like I've been turned away for something or not gotten something because I was a woman. I think that, I think that in the States, in the US, North America, I think that access to the bigger budgets often don't go to women. So it's not that women aren't making films, it's just that they're not getting nods for like, you know, the multi-million-dollar, you know, films, you know, that they have to, but that I feel is starting to change. I feel like there's a lot of programs in place for women, and I've come up, you know, in the last 10 years in sort of that, and I felt incredibly supported. There's a lot of different programs that exist, you know, organizations like Chicken and Egg that focused just on women filmmakers that have supported, you know, have been a great support. Sundance has been an amazing support. So, you know, and I also feel that especially in this last year, after Black Lives Matter happened, that there was a lot more, that the film industry was being held accountable for the fact that there was a lack of, you know, women of color, people of color, LGBTQ, trans people, all of that. And I feel like there has been, you know, definitely a shift. To me, it's been like the access to the, you know, the big series and the big films and the bigger budget projects. But I do feel, you know, like I've never encountered that experience. And in fact, I think sometimes for me, especially working in places like the Middle East, that I have found that being a woman and sort of flying under the radar a little bit helps me get access as a documentary filmmaker. I think it helps me get access to characters. I think that, you know, people of authority, you know, police, you know, they underestimate you. They think you're just a student filmmaker. And again, you kind of ride under the radar because of that. And I've always found that actually a little bit more helpful. But I think that there has been a lot of initiatives. There's still like a inequality, but I don't know if it's as drastic as it sounds like in India anyways. And also I'm really confused by that, because there are so many, when I think of Indian films, especially Indian films that are like beyond Bollywood, which I don't know, but you know, it's women filmmakers that I think of. So and also films that center women. So I can't really speak to that either, because that's what I think of when I think of films, so.
And I'm so jealous. I wish I could say that. Well, that's not really a problem that much.
Well, it's not a problem, but I just don't know if it's. I think it's.
You're right.
It's something that is not as drastic as perhaps in India, and I think that there's things in place, but it's still not at par. It's still not as easy, but it's not like I don't feel like there's a huge amount of discrimination.
Yeah. And we all want piece of that pie. I mean, we're constantly applying for grants in America. Like, hi, we exist. We're pure Indian filmmakers. Please give us some of your money. But okay, that being said, let's go to Akriti. What are your thoughts on this? This whole thing of women films, women not being capable of making, you know, cinema, and women.
First of all, Sapna, I'm feeling so angry right now about person telling you that women don't know how to write good stories. I mean, which Bollywood film has? When was the last time you saw a good Bollywood film by a man? I like Zoya Akhtar's Gully Boy, which was very good, very well told. I think women automatically know how to tell a story. It's the men who have to go to screenwriting classes and learn the structure and all that. Come on, we know how to tell a story. We have more command on language.
That's such a great perspective. That's such a great perspective. We are story. We, you know, that's why they call it the mother tongue also, because we speak to the child and the story.
We are the source of the language. And you know what, Sapna, I don't know how that happens, but I can tell you, I mean, it has been a thing with me that I'm 5 minutes into a film and I can tell you, oh, this is being done by a woman because she's paying attention to the details. Even if you don't tell me that it's a female director or a female writer, I could, because she pays attention to details that men can't. They're just trying to tell, you know, these big robots are fighting with each other. I don't know what words they say. Also, I would want to say that it is because of these male filmmakers in the 80s and 90s, let's say not male filmmakers, anyone who was making films, that our culture has become so toxic. As a child, I used to believe, because of Hindi films, that if you get raped, you're supposed to commit suicide. Because that's the message they were giving to the small child, that, oh, it is such a bad thing. How can you live after that? You need to kill yourself after that. So I think it is the responsibility of all of us women who want to tell stories to get up and tell our stories. They might seem a bit different because people are not used to hearing stories from women. Generally, the novels that we read, even in schools and colleges and whatever, are mostly written by men. So we have been living in this male narrative of the world that's created around us. So I think it is our responsibility to tell our stories. And I don't believe that women can't tell interesting stories or they always have issue-based things. I don't believe that. I mean, Nora has written beautiful stories and had the solved in the story.
Fabulous perspective. Such a fabulous perspective, Akriti. Thanks, for sharing that. Malati, what do you think about this, my friend? I know you also have good points about this. Like we've had conversations about this.
We have.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Actually, I would like to actually look at the idea of this NGO film, this idea of an NGO film. I differ maybe in my perspective of it. And I think I would like to see it as something which is maybe looking at storylines that go beyond just the individual and reach out to a larger community. And this is something that I feel, and I'm not saying everybody needs to do it. I mean, women can make whatever kind of films they want. If they want to make films of any genre, that should be available to them. But I think that there is also maybe a different way in which stories are looked at by maybe a women's perspective or a feminist view. And I think, you read about how the hero's journey is generally plotted out, right? And it's plotted out in a certain way where a hero responds to a crisis and then goes out in search for himself. And it's very individualistic in that sense. And it ties up with how you really understand a response to traumatic experience, and it's seen as a fight or flight. And that's usually how a male perspective works.
Right.
But I think if you try maybe seeing it from a different way, and if you see how research also backs up how women respond to the same sort of stressful conditions, they see it more from a tend and befriend way, reaching out to more people, building communities. And I feel like that's the change in storyline too. I mean, why should we stick to the same old stories which plot out the same old hero's journey? Why can't we think of stories in different ways? Yeah. And I think providing a feminist perspective gives you a chance to look at a different way in which a story can be told.
Yeah. Wow, so profound, my friend. So profound. Thanks for sharing that.
No, wow, I think it's like it's the things that women often get stuck with, right? It's like the same sense of curiosity of a journey is not extended to women, it's extended to men. If women end up being curious about the same things, there are labels around that, so there's just a different way of approaching it.
I mean, just to give you a small example, I was just online and, the film that won at Cannes was Sophia's film. And I've even forgotten the name of it, After Raw, the film that just won at Cannes. And it's very surreal and it has a lot of violence. And I was on this women's group on Facebook, and there are these women talking about what kind of a woman is this? And what is this crap film that she has made? It's got violence and it's got horror and it's surreal. And this is not, and then they give her an award at Cannes promoting such violence. Women like this should, and these are women talking, right? And they're all like, we just want to see like wonderful narratives. Why can't we just have wonderful narratives and real stories? I'm like, madam, you can watch documentaries where there are wonderful real stories, but this is fiction. I mean, how do you, you can't put like your lens on what you want to see based on another woman who's trying to express herself.
Not one view. I mean, women don't need to have to tell one kind of stories.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, let's go to you, Deepti. What do you think about this whole thing? What are your views of NGO stories, and what are you working on next? So, we can also tell the world which NGO story are you working on?
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. Yeah. I mean, first, let me start by saying that I really appreciated what Amber said, and I feel that hopefully we are going there as a country, but we are very far from it right now for many, many reasons in India, at least. I feel firstly, the word documentary in India, at least here, to begin with, is very bastardized. Documentary means boring. Yeah. It's no different from reality. There is this term that people use, agitage. Like you're just depicting something that's happening, and there is, so people don't understand documentary. We don't have that culture. We don't have any, we have very tiny funding for documentary. It's minuscule. We don't have any platforms where we can view documentaries. So it's a concept that is alien to India to begin with. And I'm hopefully it will change soon, because there have been fabulous filmmakers that have made films here. As far as so when we set up IWCC, which is Indian Women's Cinematography, conversations with collectives of cinematographers in the UK and the US, ICFC, and there was a common source code of what is the problems that people had been through. And in different cultures, it is in a different place right now of how acceptable things have become for women behind the camera, for example, if you just take that as an example. But it's not at least here, it's not a non-existent thing at all, which is very sad. And I feel one other thing is that in terms of filmmaking, we come from a culture in India, culture of let's just entertain ourselves out of our minds. Our Bollywood cinema is like, please suspend disbelief and come into this cinema hall. It's unreal people. They're going to break into song and dance or whatever. So with that perspective, when women filmmakers come in, and more often than not always, but more often than not, they want to tell stories of things that they deeply believe in. There's some kind of churning of soul happening, which they need to kind of pour out on film, like your film, Sapna. It's, you wear your life on your body and in your film. It's an alien concept to us as a culture, because we are in this complete culture of entertainment at any cost, So I guess it's a tall order, but I feel that if one looks at the history of the women's movement, we are one step more in the right direction, but it's not over yet. We are getting there.
Yeah, I mean, we have loads, miles to go. But let's go to you, Jasvir. What are you working on now? Where do you see this movement going? What are your plans? I know that your film, anyways, none of the Indian film people were showing it because it was so much of the NGO sort of educational sort of film. It's not cinema. So I know that you already went through this, So what next for you?
I just want to add into what Deepti shared there. I agree with all of you that there's a lot of challenges here. And I think that when something new is emerging, people get uncomfortable. And maybe that's why this label is being thrown, because women are naturally more intuitive, therefore more creative than men. That's not to take that away from men, but I'm saying if we're talking about natural gifts, this is something that women reach easier to compared to men. And when we bring in new ways that challenge existing ways, it makes people uncomfortable. So I think it's a very exciting place to actually be in, because it gives us an opportunity to reimagine what this space could be and reclaim it for it to amplify our voices and the stories that are important to us. There's no reason why we can't now emerge out of the documentary sector and step into the fiction sector. It's about showing people how to do that. And I think that's why we have powerhouses like yourselves in filmmaking to do that and carry that torch forward. For myself, with the work that I'm doing, right now with two key projects. One is to decolonize traditional North Indian music, and that includes challenging the systems and structures in the West where Kirtan is being used in yoga spaces and in other spaces in a very untraditional context, and has taken a new evolution, which is okay, but it's not okay. So
totally.
It's I think now is a time for us to unapologetically claim our heritage, because one of the things that pains me deeply is seeing the state of India and where our people still sit, and knowing how big an economy yoga has become in the West, and the people who are thriving from this economy, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry now, yoga is, and my people in India are still starving, right? There's something going wrong here, and we need to bring this narrative forward. We need to raise our voices. It pains me when I'm seeing yoga classes going on and there are no brown women teaching those classes. Like, it's all fair to share knowledge. I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of exchange and cultural appreciation, but not at the cost of silencing the voices that actually created, amplified, and championed this for centuries. So that's a lot of the work that I'm leaning towards, and I want to support victims of trauma, developing different types of support systems, to use music therapy, which is what I specialize in, as a way to help victims of trauma. I would love to be able to bring that into film somehow, collaborating with you amazing women. But it's currently where I am.
That's just fabulous. And I know what you say about yoga, because I tried to sign up for a class in Goa once. It was many years ago, and it was run by a French lady. And she decided that she's going to charge me in euros. I said, "Hello, you live in India?" Yeah. And she's like, yeah, that's all right. You have to pay me 3,000 euros. And I just could not believe that this is still happening in India, where there is a French woman teaching yoga to Indians and charging in euro money, and we're paying it. So, and the Indians were paying it. So, this
thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
it means that you're part of the cool club, that you can afford it, but it's a huge economical disparity that we need to fix.
Yeah, no, I'm so with you, and I hope you come to India soon, and we can even work on some things together, even with my own little spiritual space that I have going in the mountains. But we are running out of time. It is 6:45 India Standard Time, and are we taking questions, Praveen?
Yes, Sapnaji, we will take questions.
Okay.
On the chat, you can see I have put some of the questions. There is a question from Mr. Rajan Das. Let me say what he's asking.
Yeah.
Rajan Das is a filmmaker from Assam. He's saying, "Madam, what is your suggestion to our new generation to promote our beautiful tradition and cultural ethos through cinema?" Suggestions.
So who's going to take that? Come on, Malati, you take it. Come on.
I think there are lots of stories for sure, and I think they are rooted in culture, and they're rooted in the lives that people live. I think if we can tell them from a place of not right and wrong, but from a lived experience, then we have something. If it is about it, that all traditions are good, all culture is good, that kind of a perspective, then I think it limits, the story. So I think what people would be interested in is stories that are changing, that are beyond right and wrong, but actually just experiential and fluid. So if we can find that, then I think that's worth telling.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Also, I would like to add in this inclusivity and diversity. I think there are a lot of stories that are written about women or the LGBTQ community that really don't, or even about tribals or Dalits, and they don't have representation of any of these members on their writing team or their, in any of the core team when it comes to cinematography, when it comes to the writing, when it comes to directing, producing. And I think that these times and with the new generation, these things really need to change, and a focus on being inclusive is very important, and diversifying and understanding that if you are going to tell stories about a community, make sure that you represent that community on your board. I feel like that is definitely a very important thing going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Praveen.
Thank you, Sapna ji. I think it was a great conversation, a lot of insights, and not only from India, from abroad. Some of them are contrary to each other because the Indian environment is different from US. And I think it's very, very good that we could exchange both points of view, and we could see both situations which are typical to that part of the culture of that side of the world. Okay? And one main thing which I could take away is I think we all have somewhat agreed to reclaim the heritage or reclaim the culture in some or the other way, and all of you are working towards this in some manner, and I think that's a very interesting thing. There are cross-cultural insights in the conversation. I think that was another good part, something which matches with our theme of the whole festival. This is a unique kind of festival. I don't know if this kind of festival was there earlier. Jasvir ji might have been able to submit her documentary, because in this festival we did not limit entries to features. Yes, we had some features, but we had great documentaries. We had great short films. In fact, I recall one film which is 1 minute and 29 seconds, and in that film it's made on the basis of graphics sketches, and it takes you through the journey of how women were showcased by centuries by different cultures across the world.
Yeah.
So there is a small sketch and the sketch and the sketch. So it keeps changing in just 1 minute 29 seconds. It tells you so many stories. If you get time, do watch this film called Feminam. It is available on culturecinema.moviesaints.com. It's a very short film. And of course, there are many more films. You can tell others to watch. This festival is going to be there for 1 month, because in a physical setting, we can have 3-day festival, 4-day festival, 2-day festival. People come to theaters and go back. Here we have 74 films, about 23 hours of runtime, 16 languages from 21 countries. So it is a truly international global mix of content. So we wanted it to be available for people to watch it for some time. So that's why we have it online for about a month. As we go ahead after 21st is the day when we will announce awards of the competing films. We also had a non-competition category, a very unique category for super shorts. So we had invited filmmakers to submit films from 30 seconds to 5 minutes only. And an amazing collection of films have come in that segment. So you must watch. Some of these films are available on the platform.
Yeah.
And after 21st, we will be looking at doing a kind of daily basis, some interaction with various filmmakers who have submitted films into our festival. And we'll try to see how best we can create visibility for them, how best we can increase the reach for them, how best they can share it further with their well-wishers and friends and other, film appreciation people. And that's how, we want to build this property. This is a small, humble beginning this year. We hope next year we'll be able to bring it on ground. We'll try to see if we can make a hybrid form of model. This year we could do nothing because of COVID.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year things will become better. And I'm so much grateful to all of you for joining us with this cause. And I hope that this small step will be a long journey, and you will be part of this journey of ours for a long time in the coming years. With this note, I think I would like to conclude this session.